So how are things over in Downpatrick?
All good, yeah. It was a nice day today. It's not great now at the minute. It's just started raining there, but I'm just in the workshop working away, just
a
wee bit further on.
It's pretty spring-like over there? Or
what's that?
Are you guys getting a good spring?
It's so erratic over here, you wouldn't know. One day it is, and the next day it's all over the place.
Yeah.
A lot, we might get a bit of decent weather.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and just dive right into it, because I realized I don't think we've had a lot of, we haven't done an interview with you before. We don't have a lot of your backstory. So I'd love to hear more about what got you into lutherie and just sort of your trajectory into the guitar world. Yeah,
no worries. I suppose like a lot of guitar makers, I was a player first and foremost. I've been playing since I was a kid. Played a lot during my teens. And I wasn't really aware of the sort of the lutherie world. I was just playing factory guitars. And I think I was in my early 20s. I was in Dublin. I was at a session in Dublin, and a guy was playing a guitar by Stefan Sobel. And that was my first introduction to proper guitars, to lutherie built guitars. And it was an eye-opener, really. Mm-hmm. I only got sort of 5 minutes with it, but it was just, I couldn't believe it. It was just something special. And that then really started an obsession then with lutherie. I was probably, say if we go back sort of 11 years, which is when I started, at that stage I was working in IT. I was working for a software company. I was probably falling into more of a collector path. I loved the world of lutherie, but at that stage, the idea of making a guitar just didn't really seem realistic. Yeah. I was busy with work. I had no woodworking experience or anything I had a bit of woodworking experience, but not to that detail, not sort of fine woodworking. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to own a few nice guitars. First handmade guitar was a Loudon. And then I owned 2 guitars from Dermot McElroy. Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. We'll say 2. The second was actually a guitar bouzouki that he made, which was a really nice instrument. And that was just around the time that I discovered the Lagan Lutherie School, mm-hmm. which was just set up in Belfast. It had not long been set up at that stage. And that was run by a man called Sam Irwin. Mm-hmm. Sam would have been one of George Loudon's first employees back in the late 70s.
Okay, cool.
And he'd been making instruments for probably 40 years or so at that stage. And he had set up the lutherie school then. So I had this idea that I would go and I would try and make one guitar. So I started attending on a Wednesday afternoon and a Saturday morning. And I sort of designed my own guitar and things. I had my own shapes and had everything drawn out and went up. And then he obviously guided me through the process. But it was incredible. It was a lot changed then. I had only started and I knew that it wasn't going to be just one guitar. Mm-hmm. It's just within 40 years, I had given up my career in IT because this passion had just totally taken over.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So those early years, it was still sort of 2 days a week type mm-hmm. of thing. I think Sam sort of guided me through my first 2 or 3 guitars. And at that stage, I was sort of trying to get a workshop at home as well, get a workshop up and running at home. And it just really went on from there, build one, analyze it, what can I do better, on to the next one. And still trying to struggle on, get it one step further really. But yeah, it's been great. But I suppose one of the biggest breaks for me was the Holy Grail show in 2018. In Berlin, getting the invite there. I had only been building sort of 6 or 7 years at that stage. And I hadn't built that many guitars either. Like it was number 9 and number 10 that I was going to a guitar show with.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite daunting, but it was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I really got the feeling that my guitars weren't out of place. They certainly weren't there. There was a lot to improve on, but it felt like I was on the right track, really.
Yeah, getting that validation, I'm sure must have really helped. But just getting to compare and
well, that's it. You know, I built a lot of guitars, and you ship them out. You don't really get to hear them being played. Whereas, show, it was the first time, like, it was constant all day, every day for 2 days. You had people playing your guitars and giving you feedback. So it was invaluable in that sense. It really was. It was great.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened at that show is I met Jimmy and Roberta, who run the Boutique Guitar Showcase. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I didn't know who Jimmy was. At the time, I was aware of the Boutique Guitar Showcase, but I didn't actually appreciate that it was Jimmy that was running the show. So he spent a bit of time over the 2 days chatting with me and trying out the guitars. And on the second day, then he invited me to the Boutique Guitar Showcase at NAMM the following January. He said some nice things too and gave me some good feedback. And that was like, right, you know, there's a possibility I could do something with this here. And it just came away feeling that, maybe I'm on the right track, you know? Yeah. At that point, were you still working in IT, or were you just doing guitars? No, I had given up the IT in 2014. I actually started doing other bits of woodwork. I went to join friends. He had a furniture business at the time. So we were doing a lot of sort of cabinet making, kitchen fitting, bars, restaurants, that type of thing. So I loved that because that allowed me, there was a freedom with that then that it just sort of allowed me, you weren't tied into anything, any long-term commitment. I could go and do a load of weeks with him, and then I could maybe take a few weeks off and try and get as much work done on the guitars as possible. But that it continued like that right up until probably the start of the pandemic, that I thought, right, now is the time to maybe, there's a few more orders and things coming in, and I left the workshop at home then, and I moved into this workshop now in Downpatrick, which is still a work in progress, but it's given me a lot more space and a base really to try and get it going full time. So pretty much in here now for the last, it's coming up in 2 years now. It is 2 years, yeah. Oh, great. That's awesome. So is your workshop, are you sort of still close to home in terms of where you grew up and like where well, I'm actually, my workshop's in Downpatrick, which is where I'm from. Okay, yeah. I moved out only about 10, 12 mile away from Downpatrick now. So yeah, it's 10 minutes in the car. It's great. Yeah. So you mentioned going to a session, right? So you've got a bit of a traditional music background. Yeah, sort of. There's a lot of music about when I was a kid. My dad's a musician. He's an uilleann piper. Oh, nice. Yeah, well, he plays a lot of instruments, but the uilleann pipes would be his main. Okay. I suppose as a kid, I didn't really take any much interest in it. Was what your parents are doing isn't whatever. But as I got older, yeah, I'm definitely into traditional stuff now. So I would play a bit of accompaniment and things on guitar, like that, you know. But nice. But I don't even own a guitar. I don't play that much guitar anymore. Oh, really? I'd love to build myself one, but it's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think. No. Well, you already answered my question for later on, which was, what would you build? Well, I guess you could still answer this one, is what guitar would you build for yourself if you had the time? But the answer to that question would change. At the minute, it would be Model 2. Does it have to be one of my guitars, or? Yeah, it's a guitar I'm building for myself, so I suppose, yeah. Or, I mean, would you design something for yourself that wasn't one of your current models, do you think? No. It would be a Model 2. It would have Swiss spruce for the top, because I just love it. And Cuban mahogany for the back and sides.
Mm-hmm.
I built a Cuban mahogany guitar last year. It was a Model 1, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Really nice wood, yeah.
Yeah, we've had some really nice Cuban mahogany guitars in recently that they've seemed to kind of strike a nice balance of having that mahogany sound, but a little bit more nuance. I mean, maybe I'm just making this up, and maybe it's the builders themselves, but like having a bit more nuance and depth, which has been really interesting.
Definitely, they have the clarity that I like in mahogany guitars, but there's a bit more of the Model 1 that I mean, there was definitely a bit more of a grunt behind it. It was a very powerful guitar, a bit more sustained than you'd maybe expect from a Duran mahogany. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely a wood that is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you've mentioned Sam Irwin, who worked with George Loudon. You seem to be really well connected with all those luthiers who are in Northern Ireland. Do you find that they've influenced your work a lot, or do you have influence outside of them?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, there's so many great builders here in the north of Ireland, so many. One thing I was conscious of whenever I started was to try and... I didn't want to make a copy of a guitar that already existed, or especially an Irish guitar that already existed. So I did try to create my own shapes and my own sort of style aesthetically. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely influences there in terms of tone. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I like about some of the Irish makers is the restraint they have. You know, it's like the beauties in the wood, and try and leave that, emphasize that. Mm-hmm. Try to do that in my guitars as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the case with McElroy and Loudon. So, and yours too. Like there's a little bit of, just your aesthetics are so tasteful. Just highlighting the beauty of the wood. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that Model 2 that's probably the most blingy guitar that I've probably ever made. It has a few bells, and it has a bit of shell and stuff around the rose. But I like just a simple. I like a non cutaway, no bevels, very simple, just really nice wood.
Yeah,
very tastefully. Elegance and simplicity is something that I really like in guitar design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess now that we're talking about that Model 2, so the one that we just got, it has those bevels, and I've never seen bevels like that on a guitar before. What was your inspiration for those?
It's Laskin inspired.
Yeah.
So obviously the arm bevel, there's another bevel, and it's just what I would refer to as, I suppose, a fret access bevel. Mm-hmm. So the Model 2 is a 13 fret neck joint. Mm-hmm. So I suppose the idea with putting bevels there up at the neck joint was more to almost give you your 14th fret back, if that makes sense, without going into a full cutaway. Mm-hmm. But then, because it was a non-commission, I was sort of trying things out. I was trying to. You don't get the opportunity to sort of try things as much anymore, because it's all commissions. Mm-hmm. It's mostly commissions. So I thought, I'll give it a go on this one, see how it turns out.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, and it plays beautifully too. It's a figured myrtle and Swiss moon, or Torrefied Swiss moon spruce, right?
Torrefied, yeah. Swiss moon spruce, which was new to me.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a lot of Torrefied Swiss moon spruce, which I guess people are just like, moon is enough.
Exactly. A lot of Torrefied Sitka, Torrefied Adirondack. I've built with Torrefied Adirondack before, but never Torrefied Swiss. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. As I say, I really love Swiss moon spruce. Yeah. Just the depth, tone, the clarity. It's just something it's a tone wood that I just love. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Torrefied version of it, it's baked. It's essentially baked in an oven, which I'm sure everybody's aware of. It's baked at about 160 degrees, and it sort of crystallizes the resins or whatever within the wood. But the first thing I noticed with it was how light it was. Mm-hmm. Quite a bit lighter than a standard set of moon spruce. I'm just running my fingers up and down it. There was a real quickness of sound on it, a real quickness under the fingers, and I think that came through in the tone of the guitar. There was a very fast response.
Yeah.
faster than the standard moon spruce. But that said, I only had like an hour with that guitar before it was, well, once the final setup was done, I had about an hour with it, and then it was into the case and away across to your shelves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds beautiful. It's got like sort of a nice, just crisp. It's very fast in terms of its response, and it's sweet, and yeah, it's just lovely to play. And Myrtle is another wood that I haven't had a ton of experience with yet, and so I'm curious to hear more about your experience with it. Have you built a lot with Myrtle?
First time using it as well.
Yeah.
It surprised me a bit,
mm-hmm.
But I'm having that with every wood that I use for the first time. I think especially being a player for so long, you can sometimes, there's a lot of preconceived ideas about certain woods. My instinct was it was going to be very bright,
mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was very balanced. Sort of a bit like, in terms of woods that I use, it's probably closer to Koa.
Mm-hmm.
And it has that clarity, but maybe like quicker decay than you would get obviously from your rosewoods.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was really pleased with it. It looks quite cool too.
Yeah, it's beautiful to look at for sure.
Yeah, it looked good, definitely.
And is it from Oregon? Is all Myrtle from the west coast of the US? Okay, very cool. Yeah, that's great. So you offer only the two models right now. The M1 which is kind of more similar to an OM, and the M2, which is more
that model is the Model 1. I sort of focused on that model for years.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the best way to learn, was like sticking with the one body shape,
mm-hmm.
and then that's probably the best way to figure out any sort of changes you're doing, or what result, figuring out the results of those changes, if the body shape is the same time and time again. So I referred to it as my OM for a long time, and then changed it to Model 1 because it's not an OM. Really. It's a good bit bigger than an OM. I suppose people will use it, OM is going to be give people the greatest idea because it's mid-sized guitar, but it's, as I say, it's quite a bit bigger, probably a bit more modern in shape. So I only really thought about changing the name of it once I designed the second guitar, the Model 2.
Oh, I see.
I really decided, because it again, it's probably closest to a double O, but it's not a double O. So I didn't want to give that sort of false impression, so I just went to Model 1, Model 2.
Yeah.
But the Model 2, I designed it a couple of years ago, 2000, and I think possibly that's that mahogany cedar one that you had.
Mm-hmm.
The first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, that was the first Model 2. Yeah, so a bit smaller, and a 13 fret neck. I've always been wary of, it's not tiny. It's 14.5 inch wide at the lower bout. So it's certainly smaller than my Model 1, but it's by no means a really small guitar. And I've always liked bigger guitars, have a good depth to them. So I was worried about designing a second guitar, a smaller guitar, but I've been really pleased with how it's turned out.
Yeah. I mean, just this one has been beautiful to play, and personally, I feel like I've always been more of a mid-set, like OM all the way, but like lately I've been like, actually double O's are really great. And so getting to play more modern versions of double O's there's just so much possibility there, and they have such a voice of their own. And so I love that those are the two you focus on, because I think those are the best ones.
Yeah. I think I've stopped there, to be honest. I don't really have any plans anytime soon to introduce a third model.
Yeah, no dreadnoughts or anything?
I don't think so. I'm building a Mizuki.
Nice.
But, I don't think I'll go down the road of a dread. Who knows? But at the minute, no, it's not a tone that I'm really after. I think within the Model 1 and the Model 2, it's where I'll stick.
Yeah, awesome. So the model one that we've got coming in is going to be in Malaysian Blackwood. And that's another wood that I feel like I'm only getting some recent experience with. And so I'm curious to hear about your experience with it and how it compares to other Blackwoods that you've gotten to work with.
Yeah, I like it. I have only built Malaysian Blackwood once. I have two on the go at the minute. Well, it's actually an ebony Malaysian Blackwood.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
But it's livelier than other ebonies that have played. It's not as glass-like as the rosewoods, but has it's a great depth to the tone. It has a really, really nice sustain. Mm-hmm. Pairing it with Swiss moon spruce as well. Mm-hmm. And that I have built that combo before a couple of years ago, Blackwood and the model one, and yeah, gorgeous guitar. Mm-hmm. It's probably one of my favorite Tonewoods, Malaysian Blackwood.
Oh, great!
Yeah, and it can vary. In like the two I have here are so different. The one that I'm building for yourselves, there's like there's a reddy color to it, so you'd almost mistake it for Madagascar rosewood.
Okay.
But it'll be interesting now. At the minute, it isn't sanded up or anything, but I'm sure once the lacquer goes on it, there's certainly like greens and browns that'll come through in the color of it, which I think will be really nice.
Oh wow! Yeah, that sounds beautiful.
But no, I wouldn't really compare it with other Blackwoods. You know, it's certainly not anything like African Blackwood. Mm-hmm. Or you see a Tasmanian Blackwood or anything like that. I haven't even built with that actually. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of sets here, but yeah, it's part of the ebony family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, so you mentioned that you do mostly commissions. So I'm curious to hear about sort of like how you define bespoke or custom guitars and what it means to you to work with customers directly.
It's daunting. It's really daunting. I totally honest, I haven't built loads of guitars. You know, I think that one that you got there was only number 31. Okay. So the first thing when a customer comes to me is they have to like what I do. Mm-hmm. You know, they have to have, whether they've played one of my guitars at a show or even if it's just sound clips, they have to like what I do first and foremost, because if they like the look of my guitars, but tonally they want to go in a totally different direction, I'm just not going to be able to do it. Mm-mm. To be totally honest, you know, we all talk about the sound we have in our heads, and that's what I'm trying to do. So they have to like that first and foremost, and then we maybe tweak it here and there, depending on the model we'll go for and through the Tonewood combinations. But it's great. It's, you know, there's so many great makers out there now, and for somebody to come to you and ask you to build a guitar for them it's a huge privilege. And as I say, it can be daunting too, because you don't want to let anybody down. You want to deliver, and thankfully so far I have. People are pleased with what they're getting. But I do like work. I do like the freedom involved with the sort of spec guitars. Mm-hmm. I like just, you know, there's no expectation. Of course, there's always going to be a customer at the end of it, but that customer doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
You just get this sort of freedom where you can get stuck in and build it without the same pressures that are the same sort of concerns that I would have, you know, with the customer in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like playing music for a gig where they've requested all the music versus recording an album that you're totally imagining for yourself. And you're just like, maybe somebody will like this. And there's freedom in that when they just get to come to you after the fact.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what has been the most interesting guitar you've gotten to build in terms of like, maybe interesting is a bad word. Maybe a different question would be, what has been the most difficult Tonewood to work with?
So far, I built an African Blackwood guitar a few years ago, and it was so, the back and sides, they were so thick. Mm-hmm. Trying to actually thickness the wood was probably one of the most difficult challenges I've had. Like the sides were about, I think they were about 7 mil thick.
Oh wow!
They might even have been more than that. And because I build with double sides, I'm taking them down to about maybe 1.6 millimeters. Wow. And so I tried putting them through the drum sander, and nothing was happening. It was just gumming up the sandpaper. I was taking plane to them. It was just a nightmare trying to get this stuff thickness. In the end, I had to put on the coarsest grit I could get and spend all day and just try and get this stuff down. Because the other thing about it is it's so expensive. Mm-hmm. And, try and do anything too mad with it, or you'll end up with a load of expensive firewood. But it was okay. Once all that was done, it was fine to work with. There's woods that there was a really gorgeous set of fiddleback mahogany, mm-hmm. and whilst it wasn't difficult, there's that apprehension, mm-hmm. Going to bend it or something like that because it's so expensive and you can't really afford to break something.
Yeah, once that's done, that's it.
Yeah. But I suppose it's not really the woods themselves. It's the techniques and the procedures and the trying to figure out the best way to do a certain task, and mm-hmm. I'm constantly analysing that. From build to build, how can I do something better? Or quicker, or maybe more efficient is what I mean. Trying to do that, because it does take me a long time to build a guitar.
Yeah,
or too long.
I feel like you do about 12 a year, right?
Well, I haven't done. I have 12 on for this year, mm-hmm. and it'll be tight. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll get there. Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty common. A lot of builders seem to do like about one a month. And the great thing about that is obviously each guitar gets so much personal attention. So there's no rushing through the process.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's true. I'm still trying to figure out the magic number in terms of batches. Mm-hmm. At the minute, I have 7 guitars on the go once, mm-hmm. which is far too many for me. I don't feel like I'm getting anything done a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I like 2. I think I like building 2 at a time. Mm-hmm. So I'm still trying to figure it all out. Still trying to figure out what's the best way to run the thing. And challenges. The biggest challenge for me recently is probably spraying. Mm-hmm. I've always outsourced my spray finish work, which has been great because it gives me time to sort of focus on the build and trying to get the guitars to a certain standard. And you get it ready. 20 minutes from me, there's a guy who's spraying them. It's great. They give you a call whenever, a few weeks later, and you go and pick it up and it's all nice and shiny.
Oh, yeah.
But not sustainable for me long term. The guy that was spraying them, again, at the start of the pandemic, he got sick, and when he came back, he decided he was going into semi-retirement, and he wasn't taking on any third-party work after that. He works for a company here, and he just looks after their guitars. So there's another guy who's been very helpful, who has been spraying my guitars lately, but I need to be doing it myself. So over the last 6 or 7 months, I've been, as and when I can, I've been building a spray booth here. Mm-hmm. Which is another reason why I moved into the new workshop, so I could have my own dedicated spray booth. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's 95% complete.
Oh, great.
I've started spraying some test pieces because I appreciate there's going to be a huge learning curve there too, but it's going to put me in complete control of the whole procedure then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Do you ever, is it nitrocellulose that you do or that your guy did for the finishes?
Well, up until last year, it was all an acid, two component acid catalyst lacquer.
Oh, okay.
Recently, over maybe the last 5 or 6 guitars have been polyurethane, and that's what I'm spraying. Two component polyurethane. Yeah, yeah. I'm spraying the guitar and neck separately. Now, before I didn't, before the guys that were spraying it, the neck would have been attached, the frets and all were in. It was just all sprayed in one go.
Oh, okay.
But I really like the crisp line you get when you spray the neck and the body separately. And I really like a satin neck.
Yeah.
Drawn to that a lot recently. So I'm gonna experiment a bit there with different materials or different finishes. Sorry, for the neck. I think for the body, I'm going to stick with high gloss polyurethane.
Oh, great! Yeah, I think the satin neck is the way to go. We'll be excited to see some of those. Yeah. So, a couple last questions. Is there one Tonewood that you would sort of direct people to try out more than they maybe already do, like something that's a little bit less common that you think deserves some more attention?
Yeah, I think what I would say to people is to listen to your builder. I think I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of preconceived ideas out there about certain Tonewoods and it's not always the case. Have a chat with your builder and talk to the builder about what you like about his guitars and what your goal is tonally, and let the builder tell you what he thinks that would be. There's a guitar I built at the minute is Indian Rosewood, and nobody orders Indian Rosewood guitars.
It's such a shame.
And it's amazing. I haven't built an Indian Rosewood guitar in about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And it's because nobody asked for it. It's there, it's included in your starting price.
Yeah. But
conversations always inevitably go on to, the upgrades. And the upgrades, they're not, upgrades is maybe the wrong word. Maybe we should start, option. I don't know what it is, but those woods are an additional price for other reasons, not necessarily the sound of it.
Yeah.
And I was just working with this Indian Road. It's gorgeous. Beautiful wood. It sounds good. It's stable. It's easy to work with. In fact, if I was building a guitar myself, I'd really consider Indian Rosewood. I'm not much of a salesman. I should probably be directing people more down the most expensive route. But people should, I suppose, listen to their builder, and the builder recommends a certain wood to match their preferences. Then go with it. I think any other woods that. As I say, for top woods, I keep going on about Swiss spruce, so much so that I'm almost thinking about sticking with it exclusively. Yeah,
it does seem to be. Is there a reason why so many builders? I mean, is it because it's just kind of the best spruce that's available right now, or because it does seem to be really popular?
In my opinion, yes. I suppose it depends what each builder's looking for, but yeah, it just has that the focus and clarity and depth of tone that I like. And I think maybe in the more modern sort of finger style, it is really popular. But you can strum it too, you can definitely strum it too. But yeah, it's just an amazing wood. Back in size, trying to think. Yeah, I'm a big fan of mahogany. I love mahogany as well. That sort of dry, punchy, great balance on a mahogany guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like stores like ours are maybe kind of responsible for everybody's obsession with the alternatives, but it's definitely like a little crusade of mine that I want to get people more back into Indian Rosewood, because a lot of my favorite guitars I've played have been just like a Santa Cruz Indian Rosewood OM, because they just they do a great one. And any builder could do a great one because it's a great tone wood. And I think maybe, I think your advice to just talk to a luthier and see what they have, see what their impressions are, and not coming into it with these sort of preconceived notions about specs and what you heard Mad Rose sounds like, or what you heard Cocobolo is supposed to sound like, because it's all so, it's just, there's so much more variation than I think even like we kind of make the impression of in our videos. And I feel like I'm a little responsible for that.
No, I understand. We all do it. And there are certain woods can be in fashion from time to time. But a lot of the time people are coming maybe from a factory made guitar to a commission.
So they want something a little bit different.
Yeah, but that jump on its own is going to be huge. And then they're maybe thinking, okay, the difference between like an Indian rosewood and a Madagascar rosewood, that difference is going to be maybe so subtle in terms of overall jump, if that makes sense, you know.
The bigger jump is just coming to you or another small shop luthier. Yeah,
that's where the biggest change is going to be. You're going to love it. But then again, it's some of these things they're a once in a lifetime thing. You know, go for what you want.
That's true. Yeah. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Donal, for sitting down with me today. I'm really excited to release this and throw some demos in of the guitar, or hopefully guitars. When is the second one going to be finished? No rush.
Like I said, everybody else, soon.
Yeah.
Soon. I'll figure it out and let you know, but it's not too far away.
Okay, great. Yeah. Again, no rush. We'll just try to hype it up before it even gets here, and then we'll get lots of demos done of it and share it out with the world. So
that's great. Yeah. Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, appreciate that, and I'll look forward to hearing the demos and things.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk to you again soon.
No worries. All the best.
All right. See ya.
Cheers. Bye.